and kill you. That makes sense? Yeah? Okay, good. So there's more. Yeah, we can go more into what a drug is and all that, but each drug in itself has their own like short-term, long-term things, which is we don't have time to cover everything today, but I want to make sure that you have the basics. So this is pretty much an overall um, a good base to start with. That makes sense? Yeah. So it's essentially a poison. They all work the same way, just depends how much and how strong a drug is. A little bit acts as a stimulant. We can take, for example, I'll wait to see how it works. We can take alcohol, right? You guys are familiar with alcohol. You might have seen it around. You might have seen it in movies or, whatever. But it's something that we can see how that works, right? When somebody starts to take it, they take it for the stimulant effect, right? Then after a while, but if they keep going like that in a short amount of time, it actually can poison and kill them. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, now there's another thing that goes along with it, which is the part that affects, a lot of drugs have the part that affects the mind. Does that make sense? Meaning that it's mind altering, right? So, for example, we have I take alcohol always just because it's something that we might have more seen it, right? It's more prevalent, more seen. So we can look at that as an idea, right? So drinking and driving, there is a reason why people don't drink and drive. It is not just, well, it's dangerous, but why is it dangerous? What do you guys think? Anybody?
You might feel dizzy and you could like crash.
Dizzy and crash. Okay, good. So you can see like alcohol and many other drugs, other substances like that do affect the mind in a way that it alters the way that somebody thinks, how they perceive the world around you, right? So they don't feel, they can't really focus, they can't, like their sense of like reaction is slowed down. They might make decisions that are not quite what they normally would. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right. So that's one of the things. So far we've covered just very general, very basic, right? Now, we do have drugs as medicine, which are still drugs. But when somebody takes a medicine, when you go to a doctor, right, you have a prescription, the doctor knows your height, your weight, what might be your allergies to make your body work right, balance your body, slow it down, make it work better, right? Go back to normal. But there are people that do abuse it, and you should still be aware that they are still drugs and they can be just as bad as any street drugs if not used properly. Does that make sense? Yeah, and that's why we have also a lot of, that's something good to know because there is unfortunately a lot of problems with those specific types of drugs, right? Okay, I'm gonna see if I can open up the. Okay, I was trying to. Now I want to ask you guys, why do you think it's important to know about drugs? Or why do you think it might be useful to have this information? What do you guys think? Yes, Sarah.
I'm sorry. To be aware, like what surrounding and like what is not good and what's okay and what's not good.
Okay, that's good. Daniel, did you have your hand up? No? Okay.
No.
Thank Okay. Sarah, thank you. And anybody else want to add to that? Why do you think it's important to learn about it? Or what would be beneficial to it?
To be aware and not use it probably.
Okay. To be aware, not use it. That's a good one. Anybody else? No? Okay. Now, normally I would show you a short documentary, but let me see if I can still do it, okay? Because I want to make sure, because I want to discuss this with you guys, okay? We've seen the basics and I want to see, let me just a second. I'm gonna see if I can connect it on my phone here for you guys. And Okay. I don't know if it's showing or not. So, let me try.
It was showing. Yeah, it was
Oh,
showing.
it was? Okay, it was the video? Okay, good.
It was
Share.
showing your mobile screen.
Okay. But let me see if I can get share the video. Ba, 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 ba. Mm. Well, yeah, this is gonna be a little interesting because if it's showing the video, okay. Okay. You guys tell me. I need somebody to guide me to make sure that I'm showing you the video that I want to show you. Okay. Do you see the website?
Yes,
Yeah.
the
No,
website.
don't see it.
Okay.
I
Okay.
see you, mate. I see the screen. I see
Do you
it.
see? Okay, good.
I
I'm
see
gonna
it.
play it now. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and play this for you. And I want you guys to know two things that you didn't know before. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Here we go.
All right.
If it. Oh. One moment.
We see the screen, but the video isn't playing.
I'm just gonna go ahead and try it again. Hold on a second. Thank you for your patience. And okay, that's what I want to change. Okay. Well, I really wanted to show you this, but if it's not cooperating, then we're gonna just you're gonna have to listen to me if that's okay. Um,
That's fine.
all right. But anyways, this was a very nice video, and it showed people that have used drugs before, and they just kind of break down what it is, when they started, one of the reasons, what happens to the body with that. I wonder. Okay. So basically that's what it is. One of the things that I want to ask you, how long do you think it's your body keeps the drugs in your body? What do you think? Anybody? Harold, yes.
A few days or more, depending if you use it a lot.
Okay, a few days or more, depending on you use it a lot. Okay, good. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I feel like if you use it a lot at one time, it damages your parts, like body parts. That's like
That's a very good.
irreplaceable.
That's a very good observation. That's true. You're right. And depending on the type of drugs, it can harm different parts of the body. So you are right on that one. Sarah?
Like for one, like for more than days.
More than days? That's good. Yeah. There's a lot of drugs. One thing that a lot of people don't realize that drugs actually stay in your system a lot longer, right? And it can be from like, see if I can. We're gonna go old school, and I'm gonna show you these things, and hopefully you can see it. So most drugs are what we are called fat soluble, okay? Which means they mix with fat, okay? Soluble means that they mix, they absorb, okay? So when somebody takes a drug, right? This is, let's just say this is a vein, and around it, because all of us have fat, no matter how big or small we are, we all have fat, and around us we have like a fatty tissue. And I don't know, what do you guys know what do you guys know what the brain is made out of, most of it? Any
Yes.
guesses? Oh, say that again. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I said yes. The brain is like mostly
Okay.
fat.
That's right. It's mostly fat. So you can see that there's a lot of it in our bodies. It's a necessary part of it. But so I'm going to give you this example here. So this is the vein, right? This is blood going through it. And around it, we also have fatty tissue. When somebody takes a drug, let's say the X's are the little drugs, right? So some of it can go through the days, you know, like I said, maybe a couple days later, it goes out. Some of it goes out, right? But some of it, where do you think it goes? I put little arrows. So it goes back right there and it stays there in the fat. Okay. Which means even years after they stop taking it, they can still experience that effect. That makes sense? So if you have ever met somebody
Makes
that might
sense.
have had problems, yeah, thank you. So maybe somebody you met maybe not. Maybe you met somebody in the past that has done a lot of drugs and sometimes they have a little bit of a it still is can be affecting them long time. Now, to make sure, I want to make sure that you know there's a lot to learn about it. Today, we're just kind of getting a general understanding and overview, but each one has their own kind of set of information, like what exactly does it do to the person? How does it affect them? What are the effects of it? But today, we're just kind of getting a general understanding of drugs so that we can have a starting point. Does that make sense? Yeah. But there's a lot to learn, and I can be here a long
So,
time, so I'm trying to break it down as simple as possible to just have a base start. Okay. All right. Yes, Marine.
Actually, my brother was peer pressured into drugs, so I know a bit more.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, and he acts a bit weird sometimes.
It can happen. It can
Yeah.
happen. Thank you for sharing that. And that's a
No
good point to
problem.
also go also. That's a good starting point to also talk about the next thing as well, which is why do you think people take drugs? Like, what is the reason that people take drugs?
peer
Anybody?
pressure.
Peer pressure, exactly. She shared it, so that's good. And peer pressure, yeah. Anybody else?
Like depression or anxiety and stuff like that.
Anxiety, depression, okay. Anybody else?
Don't they like a coping mechanism?
A coping mechanism, that's good. Sarah,
Harmful.
say that
Like
again.
harmful. Harmful.
Because they're harmful, you think they take?
Yeah.
Okay. Like okay,
And they're
I
dangerous to
understand what.
the body.
Say that again, Harold?
And they're dangerous to the body.
Endangers the body, yeah. That's why they might take
Dangerous.
it. That's true.
Dangerous.
Okay. It's dangerous. Yeah, it is dangerous. But what would be the reason that somebody might be like, hey, let me just try it, let's see what happens? That's what I was going to. I think peer
Because
pressure is
they're
a good one.
exposed to it at a young age.
Exposed early in age, that's a good one. Okay. Okay. I just noting it down so we think with it. If we look at all these, we're trying to solve something. It could be just the environment that you grew up in, right? It could be, like he said, but there's also a lot of times they're trying to solve something that could be like a physical, mental, or some sort of problem, right? Like anxiety or depression or coping or peer pressure, right? You're trying to solve something, you might not actually feel like you might have the tools. Does that make sense? And a lot of times, if we look at movies, series, and well, pretty much anything like, let's take music, for example. What do we hear when they talk about drugs normally in music? How do we hear it? Like, what do they talk about it? How do they make it sound?
Typically sound cool
They sound cool. Okay.
or they despise it.
Okay. Anybody else? It's good. Thank you. Anybody else want to add to that?
They make it sound like fun, and it's more like a fun experience type of thing.
A fun experience. That's right. Good. Anybody else? Observations that they've had? How about in movies or series? Do they also make it sound that same way?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes. So we can see how easy one can be like, oh, wait, that might be a good idea. That might help me. That might give me like the boost I need to, I don't know, feel a little bit better, just have fun. That makes sense? Saying why somebody might go down that way. It's a very, very easy, you know, thing. But when we look at it, when we really look at it, right? As I too was young, I did do attend parties and I did see people thinking that that's what they were doing. And when you look at them, maybe you've observed them, maybe you have not yet. How do they actually act when they do them? Does it actually help them? Does it give them that relief? What do you think?
They act like they act funky in real life.
Right?
They're weird.
Okay. They act weird. Okay. Could it make them act in a way that it could be dangerous too for themselves or others?
Yes.
Yes, surely.
Right?
Yes.
Right? Because maybe they're thinking, no, this is the right way. But remember what we went over, that drugs also affect the mind, right? Which means they affect the way you think, how you perceive the world around you, how you react to things. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. So
Makes sense.
it can be make a person appear in that moment. Now let's be the devil's advocate, okay? Let's say I am in a moment where I'm not feeling my best, not feeling myself. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit anxious. I can tell you, like, I was very shy when I was your age, and maybe I'm having just a bad moment. Somebody comes to me, can be a friend of a friend, it could be a friend, it could be somebody that a family member, and they're like, hey, you know what? Um, I know what you're going through. I was the same way. This is what I normally do, just something to take the edge off, you know, a little something to just help me. You don't have to. I just think that I just know what you're going through. Now, let me take in that moment, you know, when you're feeling down and you're not feeling like quite yourself, somebody comes to you with a kind of, hey, I understand you. I'm your friend. And it could be a friend, right? How does it make you feel? Like, oh, yeah, maybe how does that make you feel? How do you think?
It kind of like pushes you into like trying it.
Right? Because you might feel comfortable with a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, it would be somebody that they're like, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just your friend or whatever. It's just if you want it or not. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. Okay. So let's
Yeah.
say, okay, I say, okay, I'm gonna go ahead. Listen, you're my friend. I do feel a little like, not myself. Let me just try it and see what happens. Now, in that moment, we're gonna make a little. We're gonna go old school. I'm gonna show you another. You see that line? Okay. This is like the happiest you can be, and this is like the saddest, right? So let's say I'm not quite feeling myself, so I'm just about there. I'm gonna put a little line so you can see, right? Right about there. Okay, so I said, okay, let me just go ahead and try that. And well, wow, I feel suddenly I'm like uninhibited. I'm just talking to everybody. I'm just like being the life of a party, not caring what anybody thinks. And fantastic. So there you go. You go up and then the high goes away. Where do you think I'm going to end up? Same place, higher, lower? Marine.
Lower than you were before.
Lower, lower than you were before. That's right. So
They're lower. Like Green said.
that's right, Harold.
Yeah.
You are
That's same
correct.
thing.
So you go down. So this is where you started. You go up and you come back down. Okay, now I was feeling anxious, I was feeling introverted and shy. Do you think that went away? Now that I've taken it, did it go away? Did it disappear? Yes,
No.
no, no,
No.
right?
No.
And now on top of that, right, depending on the drug, I still have some feelings of withdrawal from it, right? Something that when you come down, it does hurt the body. Like you might get a headache depending on the drug, headache or dry mouth or feel kind of funky. So you feel worse, your body might hurt. That makes sense. So on top of that, I have that. I still have the anxiety. I still feel that way. It might be just, what do you think? A little bit more amplified? What do you think? That feeling that I had before, that anxiety, that problem that I was trying to solve? What do you guys think? Or did it disappear?
It
I think it makes
disappeared.
it worse.
Can make it worse, right? Because it didn't really handle anything. It just kind of it's kind of like
Worse.
a band-aid on, I don't know, a band-aid on like a little hole of water coming out, right? It might cover it for just a second, but it's gonna come out again, right? So let's say in that moment, but I was like, now this is a point also how it affects somebody that keep taking it, right? In that one, but I think, oh wait, but it was helping me. So maybe if I take a little more, it might help me. So now if I take more here, where do you think it's gonna land? Higher than before, lower? What do you think?
Higher than before.
Higher than
Higher
before?
than before.
You think so?
Yeah, higher.
I think it
Ah,
Hmm?
will be the same.
okay. Guess what? Not quite as high. It didn't hit quite the same. Took the same amount, it just didn't hit the same. Come back down. What do you think is gonna happen?
You'll need
Same as
more
before,
substance.
lower. That's right. So every time it never hits that first high. Never. It always just keeps going like this. So it does go lower. Each time lower. And lower and lower. So it just keeps going like that. The problem? Feeling still there. That makes sense? So though it appears to be, right? Because it's called a high for a reason,
Makes sense.
but high is a fake feeling of happiness. What does that mean? It means that you're not actually experiencing happiness, right? There's nothing really that is in this moment making me that actually has that capability to make me happy. It's just a fake feeling, a synthetic feeling. Does that make sense? So a lot of people might start down that way. They get that first high and they keep chasing it. Does that make sense? So it's a physical, but it's also like a mental, no, 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 this was good. This was so I just gotta, if I just take a little bit more, maybe, but it just never quite, it's never gonna hit that very first high. They never ever get it again. Does that make sense? So it could be, that is a reason why a lot of people do, and there's a lot more things to it, but I just want to give you like an understanding too. So, because there is a reason why we are exposed to it every day, and there is a importance to understand what is being said, right? Or what is we're being shown day to day to what it actually is when we look at it, right? It's important for you guys to be able to distinguish what someone says, and you can always look up and back up the information. Like they won't tell you, like if somebody comes, it's not gonna be like a one-eyed, no-tooth man in a white van saying, I got drugs for you, children. I'm going to put you drugs and you're going to be, it's not like that. A lot of times it could be a friend. It could be somebody close. It could be somebody or a friend of a friend, right? And it could be something like this, hey, you want to try it? They're not necessarily going to tell, oh, this is a drug or this is not like other drugs. It's just like, hey, try it or whatever. That's how it might come about more likely, right? And it does start unfortunately these days earlier and earlier, so it's important to be aware of it so you can make that decision, because at the end of the day, your teacher, your parents, myself, nobody's going to be there except for you. So it's important for you guys to have the full information and you can evaluate that, right? Because they're not going to tell you, hey, take some cocaine, it's going to be a fun night. But then what's going to happen? You're going to have heart problems. You're going to, they don't tell you all that. So it's important to understand it. Does that make sense? So there is each drug carries their own thing,
Yes.
like I said, but that is like, that needs its own time. And I want to make sure that we get to a good point on this to understand. And if I want to make sure that, are we clear so far? Do we have any questions of what we've seen at all? They're free. I'm not charging for questions today, so you guys are good to go. It's an all-inclusive, all questions included. You guys can ask away. No? Going once?
Not really.
What was that?
I said not really.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. So Curtis, you have your hand up. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What is being laced?
Being laced?
Yeah.
Okay, laced. That's a good question. So laced means mixed with. So a lot of times maybe you hear it, you probably hear it a lot with drugs being laced with, probably hear a lot fentanyl. Do you hear that a lot? You guys hear that a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you hear it like laced with means mixed with. Okay. So it's not just one drug. For example, marijuana might be laced with fentanyl. So it means that it might be mixed in there. Does that make sense? That answer your question? Or cocaine or whatever drug
Oh, yeah, answers it. Yeah.
or pills or whatever. So at times, like if you hear it in the news, unfortunately, and I think maybe that is a good thing to go over fentanyl today, to just be understanding. Fentanyl is a type of drug, is a painkiller that is an opioid. Opioid is that type of drug that is of the same family as like heroin, right? So it's a synthetic one that it is used medically in like a very clinical part where it's like a terminal illness, cancers, like very, very heavy trauma thing. Because it's a very, very, very strong drug and it's a very, how do you say, addictive as well. So it's very much controlled. So this drug, what we often hear in the news is not necessarily the one that we see in the hospitals, but it is made outside because it's very cheap to make for drug dealers. It is very easy to get people addicted to it. It's very easy to mix to other drugs and make it a strong, you know, blend, or even, and a lot of people don't even know, just because they do mix it because, most of the time they're not out there thinking of, hey, what's going to make my people just do great. They're just thinking about, the next dollar, right? So you do see that a lot. So that's what it is. And fentanyl is a very, very, very strong. So that is, I had it here. I had it as part of the presentation for you guys, but since it's okay, we're doing good, old school, aren't we? We're doing pretty good, old school. All right. Maureen, did you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. So the
Yeah.
damage the drugs do, is it like irreversible?
Um, Depends on the drug and depends how much it's taken. There are detox programs and things, but you should not try to do it yourself. You should definitely look at different things.
Like
You do
clinical
have,
programs?
yeah, clinical programs, exactly. But that's a good point. One thing to note is that you guys are young, which means your bodies are still developing. And I just came back from a summit where they talk about drugs and what's latest has been happening. I did get a chance to get some nice trainings and things from doctors, which said they gave me good news. Unfortunately, it does affect yourselves as a young, because your brains are not done developing. You guys know what age your brain stopped developing at?
Wasn't it like 25?
You got it. 25, 26. Yeah. And somebody there, Saja, you said it in the chat too. Yes, that's right. So you still have that's still developing, right? Now, one of the things that we know, and when it comes to drugs, alcohol, and that harmful substances, that it does affect you, especially as young adults as growing bodies is that you're still developing, which means your motor controls, your cognitive motor controls, right? Cognitive thinking, it does affect that in the development of that. But if you, for example, are somebody that are already on that route and you stop, there is a way to for it to revert, which is great news, you know. But it does affect, like it does stay in your body. Depends how much it does create, like depending on which drug you take or which drug is taken, it can have effects on it in the long run. So it's also good to know in the sense that you can then be patient with people, you know. Maybe there's somebody that had issues in the past, or maybe they were born of somebody that had and they were exposed in the womb, meaning when they're still, you know, being grown inside the mama, they can still have effects that does affect them for the rest of their lives, and then some. So it does affect. It's not just unfortunately it when they make it seem like it's just one fun time, it can actually stay with you for a long time. But there are ways to get, you know, help. There are solutions to it, but you should still be aware of it, because some of them are irreversible. There are some that are irreversible, but for example, there are ways to, if you stop. Oh, I said, what was that? I'm, I saw somebody chat. Let me just go to the chat to make sure that I answer your question. Oh. Oh, Dr. P, I think you have to let me know, because I don't know. Oh, hold on. Oh, here it goes. Okay. What if somebody takes drugs but never really detox it out? Is it still time to reverse their behavior? Okay. Well, if they took drugs in the past and they never detox, it's not always I'm not sure if I understand your question fully. Like, is it a way to the reverse if they have a bad attitude in general and you want them to change even though they took drugs in the past, if they're not taking it anymore? Is that what it is? If I get that correctly?
No, like, so if someone takes drugs in the past, but
Mhm.
the effect is still there, like, is there still time to like reverse it, or like no?
Well, that's kind of rough. Once it's depends on the drugs and how much they took, so that you might still have that later on. So it does stay in your body for quite a while, and you might still have that reaction, but it depends on the drug, and it